I'm Stephen Romo in for Gadi Schwartz tonight, and we start with breaking news tonight out of Gaza. The Israeli military says it's carrying out, quote, targeted operations at Al-Shifa hospital. That's the largest hospital in the Strip. And it's been the point of serious controversy in recent weeks. Bombing in and around that area of the hospital has led to a high number of casualties. Israel defending those attacks, accusing Hamas of operating out of Al-Shifa and many other hospitals. The U.S. government says they have information confirming that is true. Hamas and doctors at the hospital, however, they are denying that. President Biden told reporters today that the hospital, quote, must be protected. The Gaza Health Ministry says without electricity, a lot of patients are at a greater risk of dying, including more than 30 premature babies who had to be taken off their incubators. And with no way to get the dead out of the hospital, the director there says they've started to dig a mass grave to bury those decomposing bodies. A lot to get caught up on. NBC's Jay Gray joins us now from Tel Aviv with the latest. So, Jay, what's the latest inside Al-Shifa Hospital? What do we know about this IDF operation?
Yeah, and as you talked about, Stephen, it is a targeted, a very precise operation, according to the Israeli Defense Forces, in a specific area inside that hospital. They say that the team on the ground carrying out this mission includes medics, it includes Arabic speakers, and that this group has been trained to carry out this mission, which would seem to indicate they've been planning this for at least a few days before moving in. We know that they have called on all Hamas terrorists, using their words, inside the hospital to surrender to troops as they move in. And they're also saying that the hospital staff was warned about this before they made the advance to move inside the hospital. It's been talked about for days. There have been airstrikes as well as intense ground fighting all around the hospital. At times, the hospital, which is the largest and most technologically advanced in Gaza, has been surrounded by tanks. And you talked about them digging a mass grave inside the hospital. Doctors have told us that one of the reasons they're doing that is because they're afraid to go outside, afraid it's too dangerous.
IDF really emphasizing the precision, they say, is behind that operation. Jay, I also wanted to ask about the patients, though, specifically those 30 premature babies, at least 30 that we know about. We heard there might be some coordinated effort to try to get them incubators. What do we know about that?
Yeah, and we've just learned, and we want to show you some new video that we're just getting in, that these babies who were removed from the incubators because of a lack of power and oxygen have been placed in incubators and are being moved to an area of the hospital that now has some electricity. So they're moving these babies into an area where they can at least stay in the incubators for an indefinite amount of time. Fuel is so scarce at the hospital, and it's something that they've gone back and forth about over the last several days, but they have moved those patients. What doctors have told us about the hospital is that there are so many, not only the 36 infants, but so many critical need patients inside the hospital that need to be transferred. And there has been negotiations back and forth about how to do that. But to this point, Stephen, there's been just no solid plan to get it done.
Wow, striking video to see all those babies together, Jay. Also wanted to ask, there's been this confusion about fuel that the IDF says was delivered outside of the hospital, some 300 liters or about 80 gallons, but it's not made its way into the hospital. Do we know why that is? I've seen a couple different reasons so far, but do we know exactly why?
Yeah, look, the IDF has shown video saying that they dropped off 300 liters of fuel for, and I'm quoting here, urgent medical purposes. But they say Hamas prevented the hospital from gathering that fuel. Now, one of the doctors inside the hospital has said it would take at least 10,000 liters per day, which is just over 2,600 gallons, to run the critical areas of the hospital. And again, that's just for a 24-hour period. And that's why they haven't gone out and taken that fuel inside the hospital, that it's not enough to do any good. One doctor, and I'm quoting him here, saying it's just a drop in the ocean as far as the need for fuel. Now, I know that there have continued to be talks, and we've talked with doctors inside Al-Shifa on and off over the last week about what's going on there. They say that not only fuel, which is obviously key to getting work done there, but that they've run out of medical supplies, that they've run out of water and food. food. We know that in some instances they're being forced to do surgery without anesthesia because they've got to get the critical surgery done, but don't have the proper supplies to do it. They've also, Stephen, for the last week or so, been doing a lot of the surgeries just by the light of their cell phones.
Just keep hearing horror stories out of that hospital. Jay Gray with that breaking news for us tonight. Jay, thank you. Well, to Washington, D.C. now, where tens of thousands of people, we're talking students, activists, congressional leaders, and more, all gathered on the National Mall to show support for Israel.
No ceasefire! No ceasefire!
I want them to see that Israel matters.
We knew that this was going to be, and it needed to be, a transformative Jewish moment for American Jews.
It tugs at your heartstrings.
Demonstrators were bussed into the Capitol from places like New York, Boston, Cleveland, and Philadelphia. Their mission was to march against the growing anti-Semitism both in the U.S. and abroad. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro has more from the National Mall.
Stephen, even though there has been no official count on the crowd size here today, safe to say there were tens of thousands of people in attendance that came from all across the country, some even coming from Canada. This was a level 1 security event for the Department of Homeland Security. That is the highest designation. The National Guard was here on hand to assist the Metro D.C. police to secure this event. Lawmakers spoke this afternoon, including Senator Chuck Schumer and the new House Speaker Mike Johnson. And we spoke to people that came here from all over the country just to show their support and solidarity with each other and for the families who still have hostages being held in Gaza. Take a listen to what some of them had to say.
Whether you know people in Israel or you don't, whether you have family there, friends there, colleagues, it tugs at your heartstrings.
Hamas brutally attacked Israel on October 7th because Hamas wants to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. So let me be clear. We will never let that happen.
Those in attendance here today also wanted to raise awareness about the anti-Semitism and hate that is currently going on throughout the country. Senator Chuck Schumer called this event a rally of good over evil. Stephen?
Well, just a few hours ago, President Biden landed in San Francisco for the APEC summit. Tomorrow, he'll be meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, marking the first time the two have met in more than a year. Up to 20,000 visitors from more than 20 countries will head to San Francisco for the APEC summit this week. Earlier today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken outlined some of the goals of this summit.
Events in the Middle East, shared economic cooperation, shared growth, addressing the security implications of the DPRK, Russia military cooperation, and a number of regional and global issues, including our ongoing support for Ukraine. These and more are on our agenda together.
Quite the agenda to tackle there. NBC's Jake Ward joins us now from San Francisco. So, Jake, things have been, let's just say, pretty tense between the U.S. and China for a few reasons, including that suspected spy balloon that passed over the U.S. just this year. So what exactly are we expecting to happen tomorrow?
Well, Stephen, like you say, I mean, it has been a big year since those two leaders met in Bali in 2022. The spy balloon, President Biden calling Xi a dictator, right? There's been so much rhetoric and tension and drama between them. So will we see that stuff get ironed out? Probably not, right? These are mostly performative events, but they are immensely, influential and important, especially on the Chinese stage. China observers have been telling us, that the Chinese love to have every aspect of this rehearsed and rehearsed again and again. Even the flowers and the bouquets have meaning in a diplomatic setting of this kind of caliber. But, this is San Francisco, right? There is the smell of marijuana in the air. There will be protesters in the street. There's going to be all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So whether these two will actually iron out everything they need to, from Taiwan to nuclear weapons to the AI arms race, it remains to be seen. But just the fact that they're getting together in as uncontrolled an environment as San Francisco is really part, I think, of the drama we're all going to be watching here, Stephen.
Yeah, drama indeed. Jake, I wanted to ask about that controversy surrounding the host city of San Francisco itself. What is the crux of this criticism?
Well, you know, it is really, I mean, such a wild place, even on the national stage, right? You've seen conservative media beat up on this town for so many years because of so much of the urban difficulties that it has, right? The unhoused population, fentanyl, the rest of it. You know, when you have the Chinese diplomatic corps coming here, the stakes are incredibly high. So I asked Mayor London Breed, you know, how are you going to account for that? Here's a little bit of our discussion.
Are there any steps that you've tried to take as mayor ahead of APEC to keep a diplomatic corps member from, you know, wandering into the wrong part of the city?
We are not trying to hide what the problems are of San Francisco, and we hope that people get a chance to experience, of course, great parts of San Francisco, but also know that we have our challenges.
You know, Mayor Breed has, of course, been part of a grand effort here to clean up the city. You've seen everything from, you know, cosmetic changes. They opened up a new skate park in a place where people used to sleep on the street to, you know, moving a big chunk of the unhoused population out of the 12-block cordoned off area. But she says in the end, you know, we're not looking to hide anything. We just want people to experience the city for themselves.
Issue so many other cities are dealing with as well. Jake, I also wanted to ask, there are more meetings on the horizon for President Biden. The White House saying he'll meet with Mexico's president. That's coming up on Friday. Do you know, what are we expecting there?
You know, there's going to be a number of meetings. You know, this is really a grand gathering. You know, some of the things that I think I'm going to be watching for in particular is the APEC CEO Summit that is also here. More than 1,000 CEOs are in town. And so you have the opportunity here to have agreements not just between Biden and AMLO, the president of Mexico, you know, the gathering with Xi Jinping, but you really have, you know, this opportunity in theory to bring all kinds of civic and CEO leaders together in a city like this to try and iron things out. So, again, there are just so many things for the Asian nations and the members of APEC to iron out here. You know, everything from, again, the AI arms race. That alone, I think you could have an entire gathering here about. But the real question is going to be, you know, how do those CEOs and how do these various international leaders come together in this next phase of life in this very international city here, Stephen?
So much left to tackle there. All right, Jake Ward, thanks so much. Well, President Xi actually arrived in San Francisco just moments ago, and this meeting between him and Biden, well, it has a lot of history behind it. And those complications date back to 2011, long before that alleged Chinese spy balloon. NBC's Mike Memoli has a look back at their relationship and how this week's summit fits into the bigger picture.
Joe Biden has long prided himself on the deep relationships he's developed at home and abroad over 5 decades in public life, arguing it has enabled him to get things done, even with potential opponents and adversaries. And when it comes to Xi Jinping, Biden has often, over and over, boasted that he knows him as well as any world leader.
I probably spent more time with Xi Jinping. More time with Xi Jinping. More time with him than any world leader has. I've spoken with him more than any other head of state.
Little was known about Xi in 2011 when then Vice President Biden flew to China for their first extensive one-on-one meetings.
We knew that he was slated to be the next leader of China, but we didn't know very much about him.
Kurt Campbell, one of Biden's top China advisors now, traveled with Biden then.
I think President Xi was quite an opaque individual. He was very careful in his discussions with the president, but still, in his questions and his comments, we got to know a little bit about him.
I also traveled with Biden over the 5-day visit, first for high-level meetings in Beijing.
We would like to work with your country.
And then more informal sessions outside the capital. Biden shot hoops alongside Xi at a school in a rural Sichuan province, and the two men toured an ancient irrigation system. But everyone on that trip knew that for all the touring and photo ops, it was the conversations at the private dinner afterwards that really set the table for the decade to come. Biden offered some initial thoughts the next day, expressing optimism about the future of the U.S.-China relationship.
A rising China will fuel economic growth and prosperity, and it will bring to the fore a new partner with whom we can meet global challenges together.
Speaking with reporters on Air Force 2 later, Biden offered early impressions of Xi, saying he is strong and he is pragmatic and genuinely wants a relationship. Biden would meet Xi again the next year when he visited Washington for a first meeting with President Obama. Biden and Xi also traveled together to California, focused on the economy. Those meetings, and others to come, were part of a careful choreography to manage the transition of power in Beijing. In conversations since Biden returned to the White House, Both he and Xi often recall those initial interactions.
It's almost like competitive memory. Who can remember what we had for lunch, or I remember what we discussed, something that the other said could be used in some way to gain advantage.
From competitive memories to competitive geopolitics, the U.S.-China relationship since those early meetings has become increasingly strained. In the 2020 campaign, Biden took heat for seeming to downplay the threat posed by China.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man.
Well, he is very naive about China. China just, during the Obama years in particular, just took advantage of our country so badly. A very, very big competition, China. And I've stopped it.
Biden's view, aides say, is that the U.S. is engaged in competition with China and Xi to shape the world in the 21st century. It's that tension with China that's been a key Biden argument in selling his administration's agenda on issues like infrastructure and advanced manufacturing.
It's going to transform America, to put us on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century that we face with the rest of the world, particularly China. I've told Xi Jinping it's never been a good bet to bet against the American people.
Wednesday's meeting will be just the second face-to-face encounter between Biden and Xi since Biden took office. It's the first direct discussion since tensions with China ramped up after Biden ordered a spy balloon downed over the U.S. And it comes as Xi has maintained close ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin, raising concern about whether Xi may move on Taiwan like Putin moved on Ukraine. Campbell says this is where the long relationship pays off.
Look, the president puts a lot of stake in being able to sit down and work through issues, even with leaders that he has disagreements with. I think that we'll be able to call on that previous experience as we sit down together in San Francisco.
A lot of history and more to come. Well, don't go anywhere. We're just getting started tonight. Up next, the man accused of breaking into Paul Pelosi's home and attacking him with a hammer. He took the stand today, and you're not going to believe some of the details. Plus, hate to break it to you, but some of your favorite guilty pleasure foods are not great for you. But there's even more to it. We'll tell you about a new study saying some of them may be even worse than we thought. And a chaotic day on Capitol Hill, to say the least. A shutdown was averted, and a senator almost got into a fistfight.
You want to run your mouth? We can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on. Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution every problem?
No, sit down. Right, Eric, sit down. Okay. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down. Oh, okay. Sit down, please.
Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. Today, a judge ruled that the man accused of killing 10 people at a supermarket in Colorado will stand trial. Ahmed Al-Aliwi Alisa pled not guilty by reason of insanity, which means his attorneys are saying that mental illness prevented him from understanding right from wrong at the time of the shooting. Now, if successful, he could avoid prison and go to a state mental hospital indefinitely. On Capitol Hill, a fistfight nearly broke out during a Senate hearing. Yeah, you heard that right. Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma and President of the Teamsters Union, Sean O'Brien, got into a fiery exchange of words over a previous interaction, and it got so heated that Senator Bernie Sanders had to step in.
You want to run your mouth? We can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on. Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution every problem?
No, sit down. Right, Eric, sit down. Okay. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down. Oh, okay. Sit down, please.
You hear Senator Sanders' unmistakable voice there. Thankfully, things did not get physical. The two actually ended up agreeing to have coffee together later. Meanwhile, the latest inflation report says that prices for consumers are growing at a slower pace and overall did not change since September. Gas and used car prices dropped and food and shelter prices increased. The consumer price index rose 3.2%, a sign that inflation is starting to slow down. The CDC is warning doctors to be on the lookout for possible lead poisoning cases in children. That's after 22 toddlers across the country got sick after eating applesauce pouches. Children who have eaten Wanabana, Schnucks, and Weiss apple cinnamon pouches are encouraged to get tested. And police in England arrested a man today on suspicion of manslaughter in the death of American hockey player Adam Johnson. A lot of people talking about this one. Last month, Johnson was struck with a skate blade in his neck by an opponent. Police have not yet provided a name or age for that suspect. All right, now the latest on the Republican presidential frontrunner. Former President Donald Trump is the subject of several different investigations at the moment. In Georgia, lead prosecutor Fani Willis said the election interference case currently underway in Fulton County might not wrap up until 2025. NBC's Von Hilliard has the latest.
Stephen, this Georgia case is a complicated one. To start off with the fact that there were 19 defendants who were all charged as part of this racketeering and conspiracy indictment brought by the district attorney in Atlanta against Donald Trump and 18 others. So far, 4 of these individuals have entered plea agreements, guilty pleas, with the district attorney, leaving Donald Trump and 14 others left as defendants and slated to go to trial. Well, it took the district attorney, Fani Willis, off guard when last night the Washington Post and ABC News publicly broadcast the proffer videos of the 4 defendants who had entered these plea agreements. Now, proffers are the statements made to prosecutors as part of that plea agreement. They swore that they would give accurate and truthful statements. Potentially, their testimony could be used against the likes of Donald Trump and others who do not enter plea agreements. And so that is where the district attorney today requested an emergency protective order to prevent the release of evidence before trial, like these videos, in order to protect the trial. Frustrated that, in the words of the district attorney, that it was these types of videos that could very well be intimidating to other witnesses that come forward, or even these other defendants. Now, there was some revealing information in this, the likes of Jenna Ellis, who was a one-time Trump lawyer after the 2020 election, who claimed in her statements that another Trump aide in the White House, Dan Scavino, in December of 2020, told her that Donald Trump had no intention of leaving the White House. And then another Trump lawyer, Sidney Powell, in her video that was released, she claimed that she was there when Donald Trump was repeatedly told by lawyers and other allies that he had lost the election, yet he continued to fight on anyways. So these are compelling and revealing videos that ultimately tomorrow there is going to be a hearing in the state of Georgia to try to prevent the release of these types of confidential materials from making their way out before the trial begins next year.
All right, NBC's Von Hilliard with the latest. Von, thanks so much. Now to more breaking news tonight, this time out of Washington, where the House has passed a plan to prevent a government shutdown. But this came after a drama-filled day on Capitol Hill. NBC's Ryan Nobles has the details.
Tonight, chaos on Capitol Hill.
Oh, hold on. Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution?
A fight nearly breaking out at a hearing of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee between Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma and Teamsters Union President Sean O'Brien. Mullin, a former MMA fighter, challenging O'Brien after he seemed to threaten the senator on Twitter following a labor union hearing in June, writing, quote, "greedy CEO who pretends like he's self-made. In reality, just a clown and a fraud. Always has been, always will be. Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Anytime, any place, cowboy."
Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be 2 consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Committee Chair Senator Bernie Sanders stepping in before the 2 men could come to blows.
Okay, you know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay. Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond? Mr.
Hold it. If we can, no, I have the mic. I'm sorry.
This is
hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing. And God knows the American people have enough contempt for Congress. Let's not make it worse.
Mullin unapologetic after the hearing, citing Congress's at times violent past.
Are you concerned that that's the way the conversation is happening here on Capitol Hill?
People's been fighting for a long time. I mean, go back to the 1800s. They used to have canings. It was legal to do duels. If you have a difference, you have a difference. I have no hard feelings. It's not personal to me. He just challenged me, and I accepted the challenge.
And in the House, a physical altercation between former Speaker Kevin McCarthy and one of the 8 Republican congressmen who ousted him from power, Tim Burchett of Tennessee.
Kevin McCarthy walked by and elbowed me in the kidneys as he walked by.
An NPR reporter interviewing Burchett, capturing audio of that moment.
Sorry, Kevin, didn't mean to elbow. Why'd you elbow me in the back, Kevin?
Oh, no, I felt so bad.
Hey, Kevin, you got any guts?
Jerk. I said, hey, Kevin. And then he didn't answer, and he heard me. And then I chased after him, and we had a few words, but he just acted like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
McCarthy late tonight denying he ever hit Burchett intentionally.
I did not run and hit the guy. I did not kidney punch him. If I would hit somebody, they would know I hit him.
And now Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman who led the revolt against McCarthy, filing an ethics complaint against him over the incident, despite not witnessing it in person and facing his own ethics complaint for alleged sexual misconduct and misuse of funds.
I think ethics is a good place for Gaetz to be.
Wow, a lot of drama indeed. Ryan, thanks so much. Well, coming up, the man accused of attacking Paul Pelosi in his home, he took the stand today, and things got pretty interesting. We've got those details coming up. But first, you got to see this, and don't be scared. The people hanging off the side of this building, they actually planned this for quite some time. Aerialists put on quite the performance down the side of a skyscraper in San Francisco. They're part of an Oakland-based vertical dance company, which I didn't even know existed, but sounds very cool. I guess you can't really be afraid of heights, though, to be in that group. Pretty incredible, though. Count me out. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here are some of the stories we're following from out west. A hiker in Colorado was rescued after spending 7 hours in a snowstorm wearing only a cotton hoodie. The unnamed hiker decided to slide down an avalanche chute to try to get to a road to get help. When the hiker was found, they were covered in snow, suffering from hypothermia. Wow. Well, in Seattle, the city council is considering installing gunshot detection technology to combat gun violence. AI would actually listen for the sounds to figure out locations. Also, police can get to those scenes faster. But not everyone is on board right now. Some say they would rather put that money toward gun violence solutions rather than just responses. And 3 to 5 weeks, that's how long it's going to take to fix the Los Angeles freeway damaged from an arson fire. But there is a bit of good news in all of this. That portion of the 10 will not have to be demolished. So police are trying to figure out who is behind that crime. They say that they believe it is arson, and so far no arrests have been made. The man accused of attacking Paul Pelosi with a hammer inside his home last year took the stand in his own federal trial today. David DePatt got pretty emotional just minutes into his testimony while talking about his political beliefs. When asked to list his other targets, he named George Soros and Bernie Sanders as well, among others, and said Hunter Biden was at the top of his list. He also testified that he hit Pelosi to get to his other targets. Also on the stand today was the neurosurgeon who treated Pelosi at the hospital after that attack, who described his head injury as so deep he could see bone. DePapp's original intended target, University of Michigan professor Gail Rubin, also testified along with DePapp's neighbor and Nancy Pelosi's chief of staff in San Francisco. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson joins me now from San Francisco. Steve, some disturbing stuff in court yet again today. DePapp talking about the night of the attack against Pelosi. How did he describe it all?
Yeah, this is wild testimony. We essentially heard the entire history of DePapp's radicalization, from sort of listening to these political theorists and conspiracy theorists that sort of led him to this chain of belief that he could not only believe in some of these conspiracy theories, but that he could do something about it, gathering his life savings in a duffel bag, along with some zip ties and a hammer, and trying to take out target by target. He only got to the first one, and his plan was then foiled, but he describes that night. And this is why the defense put him on the stand, to be able to recount this story, knowing that their client essentially looks bad, that this plan is half-baked, and that he never had a chance of pulling off meeting Nancy Pelosi, getting her to confront lies that he says she espouses, and then breaking her kneecaps if she doesn't say what he wants her to say. And the plan is foiled for the fact that she's not home. He never took that into consideration, and he tells the jury that today, alongside sort of originally how he got there, which is essentially that he's looking at his list, and it's the most convenient place that he can get to from the BART stop. That's the whole reason why he goes to the Pelosi home in the first place, finds, of course, Paul Pelosi, and says there's an interaction that leads them to have a good rapport. This should tell you how deft Paul Pelosi is in managing the situation, waking up to this horrible home invasion in the middle of the night, able to build a rapport with his attacker that led him to sort of calling the police and eventually, of course, confronting that horrific attack with the hammer. And he doesn't deny any of this. DePape says that all of this happens, doesn't dispute that he viciously attacked Paul Pelosi with a hammer, doesn't dispute his plan about what he would have done if Nancy Pelosi was in the home. And again, this is why the defense has him there, to say that this was never about the fact that Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House or a congresswoman or involved in politics, that this was always about these crazy conspiracy theories that led him to the home in the first place. And it ended the way it ended. Stephen?
Some chilling details there, and mind-boggling to think of building a good rapport with a home invader there, yeah. Steve. That is incredible. He also talked to DePape about the certain people who were on that list, some surprising names there, Tom Hanks and others. Did he explain that at all?
I mean, my gosh, what didn't he say? And look, I'm not going to repeat some of this stuff because it's just so out there. But he says Adam Schiff was a name on the list, says that he was responsible for having Anthony Bourdain killed, that Tom Hanks is a pedophile, that Gavin Newsom is trampling on Second Amendment constitutional rights to the point that it's removing people's freedom in California. And, of course, that Nancy Pelosi is one of these figures at the center of it, that there is this deep state ruling class that controls all the politicians and all the power. And these are not sort of uncommon far right-wing conspiracy theories that a lot of people listen to and a lot of people hear and a lot of people hold to heart. But again, this guy DePape is someone that thinks that he can not only hear it, but also do something about it. And so he enacted this plan. There's many more on the list, of course, Stephen, but I think we can leave it at that.
Right. Truly disturbing. Also disturbing to know that these are not conspiracy theories isolated to DePape, that other people traffic in them, these baseless theories as well. Steve Patterson, thanks so much for that update.
Thanks.
All right, turning now to a horrific crash today involving a semi-truck and a school bus. It leaves 3 people dead and several others hurt. The Ohio State Highway Patrol says 5 cars were involved in this. That bus was heading to the Ohio School Boards Association conference in Columbus when it happened. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa has the latest.
Tonight, chaos and carnage on an Ohio interstate.
We have heavy fire.
Authorities say a charter bus filled with students and chaperones was apparently hit by a semi-truck.
We are being advised that there is children trapped on the bus.
We didn't know it was children. We found out later. I mean, that's even harder.
It happened just before 9 this morning, investigators say, on a busy I-70 east of Columbus. NBC affiliate WCMH reporting the bus was carrying students from Tuscarawas Valley High School in Northeast Ohio on their way to a conference.
This is our worst nightmare when we have a bus full of children involved in a crash.
The Ohio State Highway Patrol says the crash involving 5 vehicles total sent 18 people to the hospital, 15 of them children. County officials confirm at least 3 people have died. Authorities tonight declining to release names, adding they're working to reach families. Investigators closed the interstate, diverting traffic for hours.
We have to break down, what exactly caused the crash.
Tonight, the superintendent of Tuscarawas Valley Local Schools calling the news devastating and heartbreaking, writing, "Our Trojan family is strong." Maggie Vespa, NBC News.
Maggie, thanks. Well, today, President Biden announced $6 billion in funding to fight climate change. Now, this comes just as a new report says the time to act is right now. The National Climate Assessment shows that the U.S. is warming 60% faster than the rest of the world. Today, the president called climate change the ultimate threat to humanity and talked about the need for action.
It takes time for the investments we're making to be fully materialized, but we just have to keep at it. We need to do more and move faster. We have the tools to do it.
Now, we've seen a lot of these reports, of course, but this one actually breaks down climate change on a local level and shows how different regions are being affected. It also blames climate change on the burning of fossil fuels, and it's a lot to break down. And who better to do that job for us than meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill?
Stephen, these reports come out every 4 years, and what's different about this is compared to what we get, with the global. This is all about the impacts here in our country and by different regions, who has the biggest impacts. And there are some positives. Obviously, a lot of the news about climate is just negative as we continue as the world to produce fossil fuels. The planet continues to warm up. We all know that math. But in our country, at least, we have reduced the amount. So 2005, they consider what the peak of our emissions, and we've gone down since then. Now, we're not going down fast enough to meet our climate goals, but at least we're heading in a positive direction. So here's the temperature line, this little diagonal, and you can see how it's gone up considerably since about the mid-1900s. And then this is the carbon dioxide. So this isn't really arguable. Carbon dioxide, fossil fuels into the atmosphere, the planet warms. And that's going to continue until we stop putting fossil fuels into the atmosphere. What we want to get to is what they call net zero, where there's more coming out naturally than we're putting in. So different scenarios. This is just for the United States. So since about when I was born, about 50 years ago, 1975, we have warmed our United States by on average about 3 degrees. Now, when we take a look at the different scenarios, there's a very high scenario, there's a very low scenario. This is going up to 2095, so about 60 years from now. The very high scenario and very low scenario, most climate scientists say ignore those. Those are very unlikely. We're likely somewhere here in the middle range. So we could warm the planet, United States up by about another 2 degrees or by as much as 7. So imagine about 60 years from now, where you live being about 7 degrees warmer than it is right now. Winters would certainly be a lot different, and especially summers too. And we do know that with the number of billion-dollar weather disasters, the warmer the planet gets, we're getting more and more of these. And so these are the areas in the states that have had the most significant. Florida stands out, all the hurricanes. And then we got Texas with, hurricanes, drought, plus heat waves, plus they've had a couple winter events there too. Louisiana, a bunch of hurricanes, wildfires in California. North Carolina, you've dealt with hurricanes and severe weather. And the Midwest has mostly been severe weather. Now, other things that we have to watch and worry about. This is by region. So we know all regions are warming up. We're getting warmer nights in almost all areas. Heavy precipitation events are increasing in almost all areas. And the amount of precipitation is increasing in about the eastern 2/3 of the country, but in the west, the average annual is actually decreasing a little bit. Other things that we're going to continue to watch, urban heat islands. So a lot of people have to decide, where are we going to live? Where are we going to retire? Where's the best areas because of climate change? And we know that because of climate change and because of development with pavement, we call it the urban heat island effect, the temperatures are higher in downtown areas. So more and more people, as we continue to warm our planet, will probably be trying to exit the cities if they can and if they do have the ability. And as far as the risk area goes, the one region, Stephen, that definitely in the years and decades to come, the southeast, summers are going to be even hotter. We're going to have heavy precipitation events. We're going to have more intense hurricanes in all coastal areas. That's going to be problematic. It's hard enough right now for those people to find insurance. In the decades to come, probably even worse.
Oof. All right. Bill, thanks for breaking that down. Okay, this next story, also pretty wild. Your favorite bag of chips or cereal? They might need to come with a warning label. Sorry to say. A newly published study found that eating a lot of ultra-processed food could be linked to chronic diseases like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. NBC's Dr. Akshay Syal joins us now on set to talk through more of this. Okay, Doc, so walk us through this study. We kind of already knew that it's bad to eat processed foods. What's new here?
Yeah, not exactly groundbreaking information, right? Ultra-processed food has been in the past linked to things like obesity and heart disease and cancer, Stephen. But what's new here is really quite interesting. They've taken this study and kind of asked the question, are all ultra-processed foods the same? Meaning, are some worse than the others, or are they all kind of lumped into the same basket? Can we add some more nuance, say, to the discussion? And what they found, Stephen, was that, ultra-processed foods, things that have a long list of ingredients, things you generally can't make at home, there's animal products and there's artificial sweetened beverages and sugar-sweetened beverages tend to be the worst offenders, about a 9% increased risk of things like cancer and heart disease and obesity, whereas other things like, for example, plant-based alternatives to milk products, for example, or even sugar pastries, for example, weren't associated with that risk. I mean, why this is important is there's reports out there that the government is considering stronger labels, Stephen, on ultra-processed foods. So having having a little bit of nuance, I think, only adds to that discussion and makes it more relevant for people today.
I actually have a diet soda down beneath this desk, so that's actually quite alarming to hear. You saw, but you did not mention it. I do appreciate that. So the difference between processed foods and ultra-processed foods, are we talking just packaged foods we maybe get from a vending machine, or how do you decide what's ultra-processed?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have a list here. So there's minimally processed, and then there's ultra-processed, and there's processed in between. I mean, you can see minimally processed here on the left, really just natural foods like corns, for example, vegetables like corn, apple, potato, carrot, or wheat. And if you get into the process, the middle here, think a few ingredients, 2 to 3 ingredients here. You have apple juice, a baked potato, maybe some carrot juice. And then finally, the category we're talking about today, ultra-processed, things like a bag of chips, apple pie, French fries, things that I don't think necessarily surprise anyone, but I think it's important to kind of define what is what here. And Stephen, just so you know, a stat that might surprise you, 60% of our diet or calories today come from that last section, the ultra-processed foods.
Yeah, I totally buy it. I did not think the baked potato was processed at all, so that is good to know. We can't, though, ignore that processed foods, ultra-processed foods, they're accessible to people who maybe have a lower income. There are a wide range of food deserts all across the United States. Ultra-processed foods, that's what's available. How can there be a solution in there for people who don't have access to fresh foods?
Yeah, you know, when we talk to our patients and they tell us their diet, and when we hear that ultra-processed component, we always ask why. Why are you eating these things? And, you know, by far the most common reason, the cost. It is unfortunately more expensive to eat healthier. But I would say, you know, my advice to the patients and to everybody watching, really, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Meaning you don't have to cut out all ultra-processed foods. It's not what we're saying here. But even making a little bit of addition, maybe day by day or week by week, because not only, you know, when you substitute whole foods for those ultra-processed foods, not only are you getting less additives, you're probably getting less sugar, less salt, less fat, less calories. So I would say, you know, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Even every change you make can really make a difference, whether you're getting rid of the additives or getting rid of some of those things in the nutrition labels. Everything, every little bit can help.
What an optimistic way to look at it. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can try to make those small changes. Dr. Seidel, thanks so much for breaking that down for us.
Anytime.
Appreciate it. All right, up next, some of the biggest headlines trending around the world. And one of those stories will have you scratching your head. 3 words: stolen golden toilet. We'll explain. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's take a quick trip around the world. The BBC says it received 5 complaints of inappropriate behavior by comedian Russell Brand during his time working on the broadcaster's radio shows. One woman accused Brand of rape. Brand stopped working for the BBC in 2008 and has not responded to these new allegations. In India, a rescue operation for 40 workers trapped under a collapsed tunnel entered its 3rd day today. Officials say they hope to get them out in the next 24 hours by using a steel pipe that will be pushed through an opening in the debris to try to pull them to safety. A landslide caused that tunnel to collapse Sunday in northern India. Back to the United Kingdom, 4 men were charged over the theft of an 18-karat gold toilet. The toilet is a piece of artwork named America and is valued at more than $5 million. It was stolen from a palace in the UK back in 2019 and has still not been found. If you're wondering, we looked into it, and yes, it does actually function like a regular toilet. And comedian John Oliver is ruffling some feathers in New Zealand. A contest to choose the nation's favorite bird is delayed, all because Oliver launched a campaign for his pick, the water bird Poo Tiki Tiki. He had billboards put up all over the world and even appeared on The Tonight Show dressed as that bird. The conversation group behind the annual event says they had to take an extra 2 days to verify thousands of votes. Yes, they needed a recount. And a winner, though, it is expected to be announced tomorrow. Well, as Israel military fights in Gaza, more civilians are actually buying guns there to arm themselves at home. The government there says tens of thousands of permits and licenses were issued just in the last month. Here's NBC's Jay Gray with more.
It's not that hard to spot a weapon on the streets of Tel Aviv or anywhere in Israel right now. Rifles strapped across the backs of reservists. But now, there's a new weapon of choice here. Israelis pulling the trigger on purchasing handguns. Many of the first-time buyers, women.
Hi, I have 2 young boys. The big one is 8, the little one is 4. They are waking up screaming in the middle of the night. It breaks my heart, and I As a mom, I have to do anything I can to keep them safe.
Safety is why Israel's controversial national security minister Ben Gvir says he's pushing to arm as many civilians as possible. A leader of the far-right Jewish Power Party, he brandished a handgun last year in a confrontation with Palestinians, saying he acted in self-defense. 2 days after the horrific October 7th attacks, Gvir launched what he calls an emergency operation to distribute more guns.
It's something that, I saw how many kids were killed. I saw how easy it was. So I think that the weapon next to me is better just in case.
The procedure for getting a firearm license, which used to take months and included in-person interviews, now is done over the phone with a permit issued in less than a week.
So we have a giant influx of people coming from all parts of the country. All different gun ranges all over the place, all over the country are also completely swamped.
Since October 7th, the Israeli Ministry of National Security says more than 220,000 eligible civilians have applied for a gun license, compared to around 36,000 in the 9 months before the attacks. And it says in the last month, more than 26,000 conditional permits and more than 15,000 new licenses have been issued.
For the most part, it's really just, it's self-defense. Want to defend your family, want to defend your community, want to defend your people.
Israelis targeting any sense of security they can find right now.
And that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Stephen Romo. We'll see you tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.